Hey friends. Okay, so this is another. Hey friends. Okay, so this is another one of those things I wish I would have known sooner videos. I made sort of a silly video like a long time ago called "Sleep for Success," which was sort of the same intention behind this video, but I ironically was extremely tired at the time, and I think it ended up being sort of a joke. I'm not sure if it's actually funny or not, but you can watch it and tell me. I don't know. I might have taken it down. I read this book almost 2 years ago called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I think that's how you say his last name. McKeown. Greg McKeown. And the whole thing is basically geared towards helping you learn how to make decisions to use your time for the things that you care most about, essentially. So, discernment is a big theme. And, if you find yourself overwhelmed or overcommitted or spread really thin, it's a great book that can, for me, there was a couple of real light bulb moments in reading that. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that concept, or the concept of action and rest, and how that's like really helped me, and how that's affected my whole journey up until this point. And I would say I'm only coming to a full circle moment about this whole thing within the last couple of months. Yeah, it will point you in the right direction of how to regain some autonomy over your time. Hold for helicopter. When I left high school, I was not prepared to be an adult. I don't know if anybody is, but I certainly wasn't. I sort of just felt like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me, and I went from having structure and forward momentum, and I clearly identified goals, to having none of that, and just being thrown out into the world and not really knowing what I was supposed to do or how to do it. I knew that I loved music and that I wanted to be in a band, and then eventually I got into acting in a serious way. But when I left high school, the idea of going to college to me sounded pretty torturous. I was not really a fan of school growing up. I hated it for the most part, actually. A couple classes I liked and some things I found interesting, but for the most part it was grueling and unpleasant. I didn't know when I left high school that you could go to college for things that you actually cared about, like for me, music and acting. But even if I did know that at the time, I don't know if I would have been ready for it, because I was still in the ick. So high school ends. I have no structure, no plan, no future. And I can think and imagine and use my mind pretty effectively, but I didn't know how to take my thoughts and make them an objective reality. Something I'm still learning how to do. And also, the internet wasn't really where it is now, so there weren't the same resources back then as far as online shit. So I basically sat on my ass for like a year and some change, and I didn't know what to do. And the best idea I could come up with, here's where I was at. The best idea I had at the time was, I will read all the Harry Potter books, and that will teach me how to live my life. Which I did do that, and I'm glad I did, because I enjoyed the books, but I don't know if it really moved the needle forward as far as life. Anyway, so I eventually got a little bit busier. I got a shitty job that I hated, and I got a job that I hated a little bit less, and I got another job that I hated, and I was in a couple of bands, and so I learned to get busy eventually, but I still wasn't great at being proactive and taking action. I was a fledgling action taker. And eventually I moved to California, and that was a big deal. And I think I mentioned in a previous video that, there was this big wind up to moving, and it was a huge deal. And then I got here and I had a nice plan, and then everything just fell apart as soon as I landed. And I've noticed there was this pattern. I don't know if this is normal or like common or not, but for a long time I would notice there'd be this kind of ramping up of activity, and I'd get really wound up, and then it'd be like, and there would just be there'd be like a crescendo and then a climax, and after that zenith of activity, everything would just drop off, and then I would go back to having zero momentum. And I don't know if that's common or not, but I think it is indicative of something that I've heard of called like kind of all or nothing thinking. And that, just as a side tangent, all or nothing versus consistently showing up across all areas of life has been a learning point for me as well. And since I've been able to show up more consistently and have more of an even trajectory, those kind of, hills and valleys have become less and less. Don't know all the ins and outs of that yet, but just something I've noticed. So anyway, I had this drive, this work ethic. I always have, even since I was a kid, but I didn't know how to direct it. Without some sort of implemented structure or pre-existing structure, I didn't really know how to use my time very effectively. So, once I got to California, I kind of bumbled around for like a year and a half, and then I went to drama school. And when I was in drama school, I had a roommate that was a year ahead of me, and I saw how hard this dude was working. The second year of that program in particular is really intense as far as the workloads and the demands that are placed upon you. And me and him were two of very few students in the school who had to have jobs. Most of the kids in that school, it was a expensive private school. Most of those kids came from wealthy families and didn't need to have a survival job. So him and I were the two of the few that had to work while going through this very intense program. And I would see, like, I could get myself pretty busy, and I thought I was, working at a decent pace, but then I saw how hard he was working, and it was like, he'd go to school, and he would bust ass, for the whole program during the day, and then he'd go straight to work, and then he'd come home, and he would do his homework until like 2 a.m, and he'd pass out. Well, oftentimes would barely even make it to his bed 2 feet away. And so I saw how hard he was working, and I was like, fuck, I gotta match that guy, at least. I gotta be the hardest working person I know if I'm gonna get anywhere. And I'm glad that I had that experience, because it did teach me to go beyond what I thought I was capable of at that time, which was 100% necessary for where I was at that moment in life. And, I would go from like 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. the next day without a break, literally nonstop, for months at a time. And if I hadn't modeled my behavior after my roommate at that time, I don't think I would have accomplished as much as I did. And it was good for me to learn that I had that overdrive, that overdrive gear. The challenge then came once I found that gear. I didn't know that I could or should come out of it at any point. And so, when other things happened, like, I had some personal challenges, and then COVID happened, and pretty much every element of stability in my life had fallen apart. And I was always in this kind of overdrive thing, and now I had like real challenges to face, and I had to put my life back together. So then I was just continuing to be in overdrive for years at a time. And even if I had moments to sleep, or if I got sick or something and like was forced to rest, that rest would not last very long. As soon as I was able, I'd be up and at it again, which, like, again, is largely a good thing, I think, engaging in life and working towards things that you care about. But I would say in the last 3 months, and reading Essentialism helped start this domino effect for me, I had to learn to undo that habitual way of being, because I would spread myself so thin that I had no time and no energy, and I really wasn't enjoying my life. And I was working on everything all the time. I had 3 jobs. I was doing acting projects. I had a band. I was in class, all simultaneously. And I just never slowed down at all. And I felt like I was constantly having to make up for lost time. And if I didn't do that, then I was going to not only fall behind, but I would just, disappear into the void. And I think this is important now to talk about, because especially with the political climate and, technology and all these different elements of modern life that are constantly vying for our attention, it is really difficult to switch off. I find, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's really tough to feel like you're allowed to take a break. And I've gotten to the point where, I started having like some minor health issues as a result of not ever resting. And that's the flip side of this that I wanted to talk about. Action and rest, if you'll remember from the beginning, was it's really, you have to know how to kick ass. And you've got to know that like you have that overdrive, but then you also have to allow yourself to do nothing and rest and recuperate and rejuvenate. R&R, baby, rest and relaxation is just as important. And the point is that you don't get stuck in either one of those modes. And being able to shift gears is something that I had to really learn as an adult. And I don't know, maybe other people know that already. I don't know, but I fucking didn't. So that's pretty much it, man. I'm giving you permission to take a nap if you need it, or to watch TV for a few hours, or sleep in sometime this week. But I'm also saying that you have to get her done. You got to get shit done. And like at the end of the day, does it really matter? I don't know. It does, I think, because this is your life and you get to choose what you want to do with it. You should be able to choose anyway, I hope. And I think it's important to enjoy your quality of life. And for me, I had to learn the balance of action and rest and when to do which in order to be able to enjoy my life and have something more to offer. Because when you overtap the well without refilling it, you're not going to do your best work. And that's something for creative people and probably anybody else. But if you're drawing on your own resources and you run out of resources to draw on, and then you're just running on fumes for an extended, indefinite period of time, that's a problem. And that is exactly how you burn out in a real way. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about because it's been really important for me. And I just wanted to share. I'm trying to share more. I've isolated myself a lot in recent years, and I don't think it's very good. And I feel a bit cringy making videos like this because I don't really want to be like an influencer or, what a YouTuber. I want to be a fucking actor and a musician, but I just wanted to share and hopefully connect with some people. And I tried to script this one out a little bit so it was at least semi-organized, because I know I have a tendency to sort of go off on tangents sometimes, and maybe it's convoluted. And here I am just rambling on again. But hopefully this was useful and something that we could connect over. And that's all I'm really after right now, just to share things that I've learned in hopes that they are of benefit to you. So I hope this was useful or interesting or entertaining or something. I hope you got something out of it. That's it. Peace.